characters were so good, they made real-life people feel like characters from The Room.
Oh, hi, Mark.
They're weird but good-hearted. They crack jokes all the time, and they'll murder almost everything for each other. Don't stop the video just yet. I know that sounded like the answer to the title question, but there's way more to it than that. I don't want you to end up like Marvel movies. Because after Buffy creator Joss Whedon did The Avengers, which was the biggest movie of all time, almost every action flick started trying to add in these little jokes and jabs and stuff at tense moments, which after a while started taking audiences out of the story. Some might say that's why you shouldn't try copying someone else, but I say they just weren't copying hard enough. Buffy characters had way more than just jokes. They had all these emotions, like often stupid anger. They also had an outside-the-box thinking, and they had a confidence that they could take on almost anything. And the cast and crew took every single character detail seriously, so there's a lot at play in the balance between making a show about these sort of stereotypical characters and also making a show about deep, complex people. I'm going to talk about the main four characters, Buffy, Xander, Willow, and Giles, and what makes them so special for TV characters. They fit one of my favorite story tropes and do what I could argue is one of the best versions of it I've seen so far: the four humors. So humor me as I ruin points about Buffy and the humors by trying to bend them to my own humor. I thank you for watching, and if you like and subscribe, I'll thank you more. Buffy started with character archetypes that people had seen millions of times at this point. For me, it was a collection of Spider-Man, Gandalf, Chandler, and that band camp girl from American Pie. And the grouping of all four personality types was the mother of all stereotypes, because it began as a way to try and group real people and made its way from there into the works of Shakespeare, which is also where most of the original stereotypes come from. I found that out from a great article by Laurie Clark for the BBC about the four humors, which are four personality types represented by four nasty-sounding fluids. The article explains way more about the history of the concept, and it's really interesting, so I would suggest giving it a read, but basically you have four personality types: the one who broods, the one who laughs, the one who tantrums, and the one who knew everything already. The first thing they did on Buffy to kind of twist the expectation of the viewer was give everybody jokes. Everybody on the show is hilarious and has a shared sense of humor, which is Joss Whedon's sense of humor, that makes them feel more like a real friend group with a shared sense of humor. Like, you know that if the Scoobies, which is the main group in Buffy, had cell phones, that they would be texting each other and that group chat would be a goldmine. Where it got interesting, though, was when we learned that these stereotypes had feelings and reasons for acting the way they do. Then the characters started changing in ways that were super noticeable but didn't upset their place in the four humors. By the end, everybody felt so different that it didn't really feel like the characters had overstayed their welcome. Even though it was probably a good place for the show to end, it felt like we could have watched like 7 more seasons of these Buffy characters. Mix in a super relatable theme about growing up, a cast of supporting characters that bring out different sides of the main cast, and some boiled water, and baby, you've got yourself a stew. So that was generally what the characters on Buffy were like. Let's get into the specific characters and what they actually went through. Buffy was the superhero. She kicked ass, but also hated herself, which is what we expect from our superheroes for some reason.
No weapons, no friends, no hope. Take all that away, and what's left?
Me.
She was extra bummed about it too, because she really wanted to be normal, as being normal for her was being super pretty and popular. We know a lot about her from this, because even though being a superhero turned her into the opposite of popular, she still accepted the responsibility of saving people and punching everything. Even though she was convinced she was doomed to be a lone wolf, she actually made connections in slaying and made her friends who turned into her family. and one of them was a wolf. By the end, she felt like she had that family and her friends, and she's gone through the arc that any only child who somehow gets a little sister shunted into their perfect life goes through, and has learned to share. The thing that sucked for her, but made us like her more, was that meant that she also had to go through the hard parts that her normal brought her, that every single person's normal brings them. She dealt with the heartbreak of somebody she loved getting a spin-off. She dealt with the confusion of growing up and having to learn to find your own place in the world. And she dealt with the horrors of losing a loved one or having to work a shitty fast food job. She got through it all, though, and wound up a leader who was able to lead a group of slayers to fight the first and biggest evil in the world. After she briefly got kicked out of her own house.
So I need you to leave.
Sarah Michelle Gellar deserves all the praise in the world for the range of emotions she was able to display as Buffy, and the Buffy bot, and faith in Buffy's body, and the first at the end. I mean, she is just a crazy actor, and she tried out to be Cordelia. Like, she wasn't even trying to be the main person doing all this stuff, and she just knocked it out of the park.
Sarah was originally brought in for Cordelia. It took us a while to come around to Sarah being Buffy, and it was a different Buffy, but it was clearly a Buffy.
Although she does get all the praise in the world, I'm not the first person to say any of that. It's deserved, though. Everybody in the crew also deserves a lot of love for how Buffy came across, because things like the way that she dressed and how it changed over the course of the series, or the way that the lighting and set dressing matched how Buffy felt about a place, whether it was comfortable to her or foreign, like, it's all done purposefully and amazingly by a crew of people who really cared about Buffy.
Now, originally, I was instructed to make Buffy a soft and sort of earthy character. And we did a very soft, muted green makeup with a little eyeliner and just kept her very natural. Well, they came to me and said, it's not working. This isn't Buffy. We needed her to be Buffy. And I'm so glad they did, because that change was exactly what we needed. We needed the mall girl. We needed the valley girl. So instantly I switched everything over to frosted eyeshadows, bright turquoise and aquamarines, and frosted lip colors, and bubblegum colored nails, and it blossomed the whole character. The hair department bleached her hair up, they went up to the blonde, and that was the creation of Buffy.
So every detail on the show helps us get to know Buffy and how she feels in different situations.
We change posters every once in a while, but we try to keep it intact almost from first season so that we really have a continuity. It's the only thing that's sort of continuous in Buffy's house is her bed, or in Buffy's life is her bedroom, really.
Xander's really interesting because he seemed like he might be like Michelangelo, the silly turtle of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but actually he was like Raphael, the angry turtle. At first he was kind of hoping that he would slot into the role of hero, but that was actually every other character on the series. Buffy was even a little bit funnier. Don't tell him I said that, though. So at first he hated himself, which is something that might have been harder to sit through if Nicholas Brendon wasn't cast for his ability to do self-mocking in such a funny way.
Nicky was really cute, but didn't know he was. He had this very self-effacing quality. It really worked for the character.
But as a result, he was usually the first to get angry at stuff. Like, he basically suggested killing Angel every other episode.
If we turn Angel back soon enough, we can stop him from ever awakening a Cathla.
Willow, she told me to tell you, kick his ass.
Angel was evil sometimes, but it was way less of the times than you would think. But he got better slowly as he became more confident in his role as the person who made sure everyone else was all right.
We really wanted to have that moment where Xander sort of goes, wait, you mean if I had dealt with my life with confidence, maybe I could make it be a better life. Maybe it doesn't take magic to make my life better.
Even though being the normal one of the group means that a lot of fans only remember him for being the start shitinator. Like, Buffy got all these cool moments like catching the sword, Willow got to beat up a god, Giles was pure sex appeal, and Xander just kind of always wanted to see everyone naked. Because his power was that he had a tendency to wear his mind on his sleeve, and a history of taking off his shirt. And by the end, even when he couldn't quite get his own shit together, he was still important in getting everyone else to be the best versions of themselves.
They'll never know how tough it is, Donnie. To be the one who isn't chosen. To live so near to the spotlight and never step in it. But I know. I see more than anybody realizes because nobody's watching me. I saw you last night. I see you working here today. You're not special. You're extraordinary.
It's a great take on the angry guy stereotype, having him grow into somebody who inspired others because he kind of just learned to calm down and take things for what they are. So that made Willow the silly one, which made sense because she spoke in a baby voice for half the show.
Ooh, pancakes could go in bellies.
I actually flipped between her being the silly one and the angry one, since she does have a lot of moments where she just loses her temper, but what kind of tipped the scale for me was the fact that she is, for the most part, trying to avoid those negative emotions in the show. She's usually running away from some sort of negative thing.
When Alice left Willow, obviously it devastated her. And she's not willing to let the grief run its course because it's just so painful for her. So she decides she's going to do something about it to stop her pain.
She was the friend, if you've ever had them, who acted quirky, and everyone kind of knew it was because if they ever acted the way they felt, they would probably go nuts at the first sign of trouble. And it was usually because she spent all that time running away from whatever it was that was going to be bad. She wouldn't face her feelings for Xander until they were both just cheating on their significant others. She wouldn't really face her problems with magic until she decided to end the world. And when she finally powered up and got Danny Phantom hair in the end, it was because she was ready to face her fears head on, finally. The whole time though, she had pretty chaotic energy. Like, I'm pretty sure Buffy could drop kick a toddler and she would hack into the police department to help her by dropping all the charges or something. She was the definition of ride or die for Buffy. If the Scoobies were told that something couldn't be done, she was also usually the person that was involved in making that first person look like an idiot. And she was just so happy to do it all. Allison Hannigan even got cast partly for her ability to deliver any line happily.
Every line that somebody else would play like they were sad, Allison was joyful about.
And like with the others, they found so many ways to deliver on the character of the wild one. They made her shy but mischievous, and then they gave her a college glow-up, and then they made her like a murderous drug addict, and the list goes on. Never quite shook the baby voice, though. That leaves Giles, the voice of reason. A British voice of reason with a gorgeous singing voice of reason.
Would you still remember me?
He started as one of the Watchers, a group who controlled the Slayer through rules and Britishness. Since the rest of the gang were teens, rules weren't really their thing, so they were often pushing against that, and after a while, Giles kind of let up, because turns out, actually, he was the most rebellious of them all. The reason he was so buttoned up in the present of the show was because he fucked around and found out with a demon that killed his friend, and so being a Watcher was his way of running away from all the trouble that he stirred up in his youth. They called him Ripper. He was ripping something. So he related a lot to the teens as they made their mistakes. Except Xander. He hated Xander.
You're not real.
Sure, I'm real.
It's a trick. It gets inside my head, make me see things I want.
Then why would they make you see me?
All right, let's go.
And as Buffy got older, he started worrying that she was no longer going to need him. Until he realized the actual problem was she had gotten too lazy after getting dragged out of heaven. I think maybe Anthony Stewart Head had something else to do or didn't want to be on the show. That I think that the write-off, I should look it up, actually. I'll do that right now. Why did Giles leave Buffy? He was just tired, I think, from what I read. But like, that makes sense because filming a TV show is like insane work. So Giles was the only one of the main four who ever left the show for a while, and he ended up being right as a character for it, even though it did seem kind of insane when it happened. But Buffy was able to grow into an actual leader with him being gone, and kind of completed her arc in his absence. He also went through my favorite arc, from getting knocked out like every third episode to...
I'd like to test that theory.
The way the show explored the rigid rule follower trope reminded me a lot of that quote from Doctor Who.
Good men don't need rules. Today is not the day to find out why I have so many.
So the key, or dawn, to all the characters was that they explored everything possible with these ideas of character tropes, and let their characters be different versions of the same trope as it went through the series. In a way, exploring the personality types and why people develop personalities like the ones the characters had on the show. Why was Buffy a strong leader? Because she loved people and knew how to inspire them through her confidence and punches. Why was Xander the Heart? He realized being confident and understanding was better than being angry and horny? Self-hating. The script said it's self-hating. What made Willow so quirky? A seething rage that literally inspired chaos demons on the show that she had to push down relentlessly. And why was Giles such a nerd? He was scared straight. I just love how they built off those archetypes in a way that made them all seem deep without being unrecognizable. And every actor was cast, dressed, and directed perfectly. The stories were interesting, and so the characters felt alive. So if you want characters like you see on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, just make sure you hire people who care about the craft and are willing to give 110%. And then make them work relentlessly to do that on a set that later comes out as having a horrendous work environment. Or, I don't know, write a book.